I just realized I've never made an introduction video or anything on this channel. Um, Hi. So back in 2021, I had this idea for a comic, and I wanted to make it a webcomic. But then I heard that the best idea for making a webcomic that you've been planning for a long time is to not make it. Instead, you should make a smaller comic so you get the feel of making comics before you dive in headfirst. So, in 2021, I made a sort of throwaway comic to test my comic skills and called the comic Home Before Dark. It is very flawed, and go figure, making a comic a thriller horror when at the time I've rarely consumed that type of genre before wasn't the best idea, but it did its job, which was to prepare me a little better for the comic making world. Even though this comic was flawed, like I said, I actually really love the characters, and I love making the comic, which is really the whole point of making comics in the first place. So, my throwaway one-year comic idea went down the drain after I extended the comic to be a little bit longer, and also changed the genre in later books. Now it's a 3-part webcomic which you can read on Webtoon, Tapas, and Instagram. So now the comic is reaching its 2-year anniversary on February 9th, 2023. Last year, for the anniversary of posting my first comic page, I made this illustration, which is cool because I didn't do a lot of illustrations with multiple people back then, which is a little weird for a webcomic. I'm working on it. So now for this year I want to make something for my second anniversary. Something unlike my illustration last year, something new. Now, recently I've been doing a lot of digital work in the past couple years, and I've gotten good at it, but I'm not too good with traditional art and crafting. So it's been my 2023 resolution to practice more with traditional art, which perfectly transitions to what I'm doing for this year's anniversary, which is make a life-size guinea. So basically in my comic, my main character meets this guinea pig, and he's a character. He can't talk, but he has that Disney-like personality where he can understand humans, I guess. I don't know, I made this comic on a whim, and it shows. He helps out, and he's about the size of a hand, so this shouldn't be too hard, right? Alright, so, the first order of business here is to get some filling for my clay guinea. I don't know where I heard about this, but I'm pretty sure you're supposed to use aluminum foil and put clay around it so you use less clay. I'm not sure where I heard this, but I'm happy I did that because it made the final project lighter and I used less clay. So here are my wads of aluminum foil. I tried to do this thing to connect them with more foil, but I was having trouble and went back and forth on if I should use them, and I ended up with this. Now it was time to get the clay. I'm using this clay that I believe is pronounced Das, and already through the packaging I could feel how soft and squishy it is. That's why I go on poking it for like 8 minutes. Also, this is made in Italy, so I know it's going to be good clay from my totally unbiased perspective. I rolled out the clay and then folded the clay over the aluminum foil like a wrap and sealed it off. And guys, let me tell you, it was the most satisfying thing ever. When I was crushing up the aluminum foil for the filling before, I was like, whoa, satisfying, until it got more compact and it felt like there were a million tiny knives digging into my skin. But with this, there were no downsides. By now I'm just smoothing out the clay, and now that Guinea has his signature shape, which is like that of a potato, I can start shaping the rest of him. Okay, now his face gave me a lot of trouble. He had this very pronounced snout, and his face just wasn't looking good, especially from the side view. So after fiddling it for too long, I just smushed it flat and tried again. This time focusing more on the shape first before the details, and it started looking much better. Oh, yeah, and then I added some ears, and I also added his 2 front feet. I attempted the back feet, but I eventually gave up. Now here he is at the window where he's going to dry, and I was going to add the nose, eyes, mouth, etc. after, but I was too impatient and did them off camera. This would turn out to be my demise. I should have added them when the clay was still malleable, because they would have attached better, and instead his left eye fell out behind my radiator and got dusty as heck, and now I gotta glue it back on. Before I do that though, it's time to paint, and by now I've realized I don't have the right paint color for Guinea. According to Google, I have to mix brown and purple and yellow to make gold, but I didn't have brown, so I looked up how to make brown, and you need more yellow, and I have less than a quarter of a bottle of yellow. So I made a trip to Michael's and got some paint. Little side note, there was this elderly couple who were practically drooling over the art supplies, and they were like, "Did you see that wall of paintbrushes they have?" Nice to know you never get old of Michael's. And then at the checkout, I dropped my brown paint, and the bottom broke, and I felt too embarrassed to get a new one, since I was the one who dropped it, and now it's living on top of a napkin. Anyway, it was time to paint, and I realized how translucent and metallic this gold was. They didn't have a better gold, this was all they had. I thought I'd be smart artist for a second and mix colors to make the gold less translucent, but I used white, which made it not gold, so I added black and got this battleship gray color, and I probably should have added the brown I broke to make it better color, but instead, I decided to settle because once again, I'm not good with traditional art. I accepted my fate of doing 2 coats, which I would probably have to do anyway, and now Guinea was looking like a golden turd, just how I like it. I left him out to dry and came back the next day. Yes, I forgot to clean my brushes. I got distracted when I resumed watching Supernatural Season 1 for the first time. I am really sorry to all the traditional artists watching this video right now. I started marking Guinea's white spots with a pencil until I realized I can't see the markings at all, so I just went in with the first coat of paint. Remember how I said I didn't wash my brushes? Well, I couldn't use them, and I don't have many others, so I'm using this ripped-up paintbrush. Once again, I am so sorry to the traditional artist out there. So, I never really made a proper reference sheet for Guinea's stripes, but there's supposed to be a little, paint fill on him, so this is some hyperrealism right here. By now I'm finishing the first coat, and I touched up those swirly things at the edges off camera, but there was only so much I could do. While that first coat was drying, I decided to wash my brushes to make up for the pain I caused traditional artists. And then I learned you're not supposed to leave your paintbrushes in water because it damages them. This entire video is becoming those how to annoy an artist videos despite my best efforts to avoid that. Have I ever mentioned my grandmother was a painter? She was an amazing artist. Got her work framed, she won awards. We even have a bunch of her art framed in our house. Look at how good this is. She's probably watching over me right now, oh, it's nice to meet up with more artists. Oh, I agree. So did any of you have grandchildren? Oh yes, I have a couple of grandchildren. One of them is even interested in art. Oh, how amazing, wow. In fact, they're painting something now. Well, let's see. Well, let's move on, shall we? I'm sure we could see other people's art grandchildren. My 3-year-old grandson knows color theory. I am bringing dishonor on my family with this guinea pig. After destroying my brushes, I went back in with a second coat of white paint for coverage, and then geared my attention to the eyes, where I messed up a little bit. Oh my god, he's emo. I went with that same paintbrush to the mouth, and we all saw where this was going. Oh, no. Wiping it off made it even worse. Let's just put some foundation there. Yep, there you go. Now, quick intermission. As I was looking for paint in my paint drawers, I saw I had these acrylic paint pens. I don't remember buying them, and I don't remember someone giving them to me. All I know is I have them now, and I'm using them, which was a turning point for the better in this project. I had a lot more control with the paint pens. I added whiskers at the beginning, but decided against them 2 seconds later, just like the comic. I then added highlights on his eyes, which really helped the voids on his face. Now, quick story time. I had a hard time with Guinea's nose because it's a weird pink color, and I didn't have that, and I forgot to pick it up at Michael's, but Lifesaver acrylic paint pens came through because I had the similar color and it worked well. It was really starting to come together, and I realized how much I liked the eyes, so I thought a cartoonish style would make this even better. Remember this thing I saw where people would line their cakes to make them look like cartoons? So I decided to add a black line with paint marker to make him more cartoony and to fix my kind of messy white splotches. After that, I painted his feet off camera and lined them. Then I wanted to add those little feet paws, you know what I'm talking about. I outlined that, then went with the paint, because my paint marker had a fine tip and I'd used too much time and paint, so I went traditional, which I once again messed up twice. After that dried, I painted over it to restart, and went to try a different technique on the other foot, where I grabbed a Sharpie, which was basically dead and did nothing. And then I got the $1,000,000 idea. Okay, wait, I have a crazy idea. Oh my gosh, I'm a genius. Yo, did I just make painting 10 times easier for myself? I made my dead Sharpie a paintbrush and dipped it in black paint so I had more control over where I was painting, and it worked like a charm. I was so enamored by it I exited the frame, but it worked. Then I got sidetracked and used my other dead markers and paint to make this in my sketchbook, and was very proud of myself. After I finished the other feet, I went in to seal them up with Mod Podge, and this is where I got a little bit nervous, because I know the Mod Podge dries clear, but what if it doesn't? Look at how crappy he looks at this stage. It looked even worse in person. And with that, here he is in front of this brick wall. I took him outside to get better lighting, and I was very aware of anyone coming out into their backyards and looking at me taking pictures of this lump of clay, but I was alright. Also, of course, I had to do the reveal like this. This is basically how it went down in the comic, except my shoes are better. Sharon's house is actually based on a real house that I can go to and film in the actual place it's supposed to be, which I might do, but right now I'm too lazy for that, and I'm just trying to get this video out before it's like December 9th. I had a little bit of trouble figuring out where to position Guinea in all of these because right now it's February and everything is dead outside, but I did find some places. Here he is in some positions that mirror the comic. I thought it would be pretty cool to do that. Considering everything I went through to make him and my awful painting skills, I think came out alright. There is still some cloudiness from the Mod Podge, but I think that's on me for putting too much on. And with that, my Guinea is finally complete. It took me a lot of outfit changes to do so, but he's done. And now he sits on my bookshelf right above my Charlie Bone books. Thank you so much for watching whatever the heck this video was. I thought I'd do something different for my 2nd year anniversary, and yeah, also this is like my first video that's actually good. So consider subscribing and seeing what else I come up with for my 3rd anniversary. Alright, thank you and goodbye.